To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is the Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Sean Whittington. I'm a seminarian in the United States Old Catholic Church, and I'm coming to you live from my haunted house, my very haunted house, where I live. Um, Anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz, and it's all there, including my second book. My second book is there. God, Ghost, and the Paranormal Ministry 2 came out Memorial Day weekend. So now it's twice the rev, twice the fun. You can get both books.
How'd they get you standing up? I didn't know that you did that.
I didn't know I did that either.
Yeah, that's a
That's
pretty good looking book there. Hey, I bet you I know a producer that would sure like a copy of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yep, I'm getting to them. I have a whole list of people that are going to be getting them. So it's going to show up in a tiny little New Jersey Devil jersey.
Well, there we go. All right. Then that book's going to be worth something. So, but then you're probably going to autograph it, which means it's going to go back to, oh no, then it's going to be priceless.
There you go. And the best part, if you haven't done your good deed for the day yet, part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my books go to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Nevada, and the ASPCA. How cool is that? What do I want to say? There's so much I want to say. I hope you all enjoyed Eli Roth Presents The Legion of Exorcists last night, episode 1. I'm very pleased with how it came out. My wife loved it. That's good enough for me. I'm very proud to be a part of that project. So that'll be episode 2 next Thursday night, 10 p.m. Travel Channel, Discovery Plus Max. Hope you all enjoyed it, or if you haven't seen it yet, enjoy it. And God bless you all for the support. The support has been off the charts and very humbling to get the kind of positive feedback I've gotten and all the support. So God bless you all for that. Today is First Friday. You know what that means. It is the monthly series here, every first Friday, Christian Supernatural. So, without further ado, let's give a big, warm Paranormal Ministry family welcome to my very special co-host, the one and only demonologist, Eira WULFNOTHSSON. Hey.
Hey. I don't know if demonologist is the right word because I study demonology.
We can change it. You tell me what you.
Well, that is the correct term, but I just want to make it clear I'm not one of the exorcists out there that do the rite or the rituals. I study
That's
it.
cool too. And most people, and I'm glad you brought that up. Most people don't know that, but most demonologists aren't exorcists.
Yeah, that's correct.
Um,
But we can
so
advise, we can share.
Absolutely.
We study it so we can get to the deeper questions. But you guys are the true battle-armed spiritual warriors that go out and do the dirty work. We don't.
How was your Memorial Day?
It was very peaceful.
How's all your fur babies?
They're very peaceful. Nothing remarkable to report. And if I wasn't Christian, if I went back to my past occult life, my whole life, and you said, how was your whatever, I would have all kinds of things to report. But I don't have them anymore.
Well, I know I must have sent you knowing that you had been through it. I know I sent you a message about my mastiff tearing her cruciate.
Yeah.
And that was when it first happened. I'm almost positive it has to be me. It sounds like somebody's got their mic right in their nostril. Is that me or is it?
It's probably me. I used to get in trouble on K-Core radio all the time, remember?
There you go. And that's a bad word. We don't say that word here on.
Okay. Okay.
Um, what do I want to say to you? Oh yeah, she tore a cruise shit. What was it? A month ago or less? 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago? And she's 13 years old and she's big. And
Yeah.
um, at first when she did it, she wasn't walking at all, and I thought, well, she was probably really scared too. We don't know how it happened, but I thought it's time. The time has come. But took her into the vet. I've known this vet. He owns the clinic my wife and I work at. I've known him for over 20 years. He would be honest with me. He said, "Dude, it's not time yet. She's walking. You're going to have her on great pain medication, and she's not ready to go. She's walking around. She's got a limp, but she's walking around. She's an indoor dog. You know, it's not
I
she's not
I
time.
think I think your words were couch potato.
Yeah, she's a couch potato,
Yeah.
a big couch potato." And as soon as we got her home, like I said, really bad limp, but she loves her pain meds. And as soon as we got her home, she went right over to the doggy door, very gingerly, very calculated, very slowly, went through it, and then when she was done doing her business, the same way coming back in. And she's just, if the cats are out there, she just looks at them and goes, "Ain't chasing you," and just
Oh,
goes and does her business. But
aw.
he would be honest with me if he thought it was time, because you know me, I don't want to see any animal suffer, especially my own. But he said it's not time yet, dude. So I couldn't do the surgery because she's 13. You've done that with your dogs. That's a
Mhm.
brutal surgery. Recovery is brutal.
Yeah.
Rehab is brutal. And they always did. Your dog tear the other knee?
Mm, both my dogs had both legs done.
See, they always do the second. Why, after you do the one knee, they tear the other leg, I don't know. But it almost 99% of the time
Mhm.
almost always happens.
Yeah.
And she's just too old to go through that type of surgery
Yeah.
and rehab and all that. So
Yeah.
it is
I
what it
agree.
is, but she's still here. And
You're doing the
um
right thing.
but I was ready when I took her down there. It was very upsetting, and I thought this was it, because when you have a big dog, a big animal go down, you can't let him suffer like that. You can't get him a wheelchair. I had a dog once in a wheelchair. It was brutal. I had a dog once that had only 3 legs because she had bone cancer in the one leg, and I had it amputated. She went on to live for another year, but that year I could tell it was brutal getting around like that. And I swore to myself I would never put any of my mastiffs through that again. But it is what it is. I'm glad all your fur babies are doing great. That was pretty. When you reached out back in the day, man, that was a while ago. You reached out to me and said, "I know you work at an animal hospital." And I was at a surgery place at the
Mhm.
time, and your dog had injured himself, and you were very that I'd never seen you that troubled and concerned, just like you were just having an outer body experience trying to deal with it, because they're our babies.
Yeah. That was definitely part of the spiritual attacks for me, I think, because it was repeated incidents of similar things coming at me over and over and over. And that was one of them.
Well, listen, what are we going to talk about today? I wrote some notes. We had kicked around in some messages back and forth. First of all, I want to let everybody know watching, we're opening up the chat today. This would be a great day. If you have anything that you want to ask myself or Eira, go for it. Zach will see the question. He'll put it in the chat room.
I got to
Um,
work today.
a little bit.
Oh man, I was going to read my comic books.
See, here's the thing with Zach. Now, the day I have everybody on from the TV show, he puts on a suit. Today, for just you and I, it's
I know.
probably just came in from gardening or something. I don't know.
I No, he was cooking.
Cooking or
Well,
gardening or.
I have a couple of things. When I discussed with you the paranormal fascination,
Yeah.
what's going on with all the paranormal stuff? What does that mean?
And then after that, and how demons suck you in.
Yeah, that's what they do. And
Okay.
that's what the paranormal is all about. If you're speaking of the mysteries or miracles, that's God stuff. But the paranormal, you just never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates.
I am going to be quiet now and let you take us anywhere you want to take us.
Okay. So everyone's had a paranormal experience. And when you ask someone and they say no, they haven't, they're usually not being honest with you, or they didn't recognize it as a paranormal experience. But 100% of the people on this planet, because we're as human beings wired to be spiritual, everybody has had a paranormal experience, whether or not it's a miraculous one or a holy one, or whether it's diabolic. So when we talk about the catchphrase or the catch term paranormal, that's usually something that we see within the lexicon would involve crypto, like Bigfoot, werewolves, therianthropes, anthropomorphic creatures, orbs, UFO stuff, alien abduction stuff. And you know, each arena, still tries to go in the direction that Bigfoot is flesh and blood, UFOs are, you know, actual physical objects. And when I look into, the UFO phenomenon, it really fascinates me because the government recently changed its use of the term UFO to UAP. And that's sort of strange. After 70 years, they suddenly labeled it UAP. And if you look at UFO, it means unidentified flying object. So they're in the belief for 70 years that these are objects, and we hear about retrievals and physical ships that are found. But when they changed the definition to UAP, I sort of hearkened up because in Oxford language, a phenomenon, because that's UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, not unidentified flying object. It's now unidentified aerial phenomenon. In Oxford language, the definition is a fact or situation that is observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question. So, really, the government is saying, we don't know what these things are either, but they're not UFO. They're not unidentified flying objects. They're phenomena. So that's, kind of a red flag for me. And at least it's honest because if you look at the similarities between spiritual beings, let's say demons, they have a lot of similarities in the paranormal with demonic activity. So they are, when you're abducted by, and you have, did you want to ask me something, Zach?
Yeah, real quick. And
Okay.
Sean, is this better? I put on a tie. All right. It's really weird on a.
I love that. And it's got
Yes.
little ghosts on it too,
No,
right?
no, no. Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. But
Okay.
so, Eira, what are they saying then about like all the Navy photos that they have? All the, the Navy, even as far back as World War II, were complaining of Foo Fighters. They were saying that
Yeah.
that the Germans were using Foo Fighters. They were finding little
Yeah.
So,
So,
but what are they
yeah.
saying about that then? Because they're releasing a lot more footage that
Mhm.
is showing something that is that is
That is nuts and bolts or physical,
right.
right? Yeah. Well, spiritual beings, I guess you would think when I use the term spiritual beings or spiritual entities, you would think, well, they're corporeal, or they don't have a body. But if you look at angels in scripture, they will manifest with a physical body, eat food, walk around. Jacob struggles with one. They're very physical. You can touch them, They can eat food with you. They sit by the fire. So these things also in the paranormal will bleed into our reality, become physical enough to leave, in a Bigfoot's case, footprints. In some of the mythology with the jinn, there's one man that talks about an experience with jinn where they abduct his cat out of his kitchen, but when they return it, it comes in a contraption, a metal box, which is solid. He opens the door, lets the cat out, turns around, and the box has dematerialized.
Wow.
We often have experiences with dematerialization of objects. So when it comes to the supernatural or the paranormal or the spiritual, things can become physical and then go back to ethereal again. And that has to do with the Hermetic principle of vibration. So things vibrate, light vibrates, everything is vibrating, right? We all know that at the deepest, tiniest level. And because things vibrate, if you take water and you vibrate it, it becomes steam, which then becomes pure light, which goes, so things transform that way. And when you lower a vibration, it can lower down from, say, steam into solid water, into the physical aspects of water. So it's something like that. So we see that with the Kabbalistic tree of life, different realms as they climb up the tree become higher in consciousness or higher in vibration. It's more pure because it's closer to light. The metaphors and allegories and symbolism of this are everywhere. We get this in the occult wisdom streams. You probably, and you can get it in science, but you're probably not using that part of your brain to figure it out for the paranormal. But these things can also be physical objects, but they all have similarities in that when you have the alien abduction experience and they're messing around with eggs and sperm, that's very, very similar to the succubus incubus mythology that you see with demons. Also, people that are abducted, they get messages, or they get messages from Bigfoot, or they get messages from any of these beings within the paranormal lexicon. There's a lot of light involved in the experiences. Orbs are present. And as we know, not to get all evangelistic on people, but Lucifer, his name means light bringer, Hyleel, light bringer. Lucifer is known, to appear as an angel of light. Okay, take that again and then think, well, light is good, light is beautiful. If I see a being of light, I know that's good. Well, that's not necessarily true, because Lucifer, light bringer, light, as we know, also blinds you. So there's a metaphor to that as well, as in the Bible, it speaks of the God of this world blinding unbelievers. It's I can give you the actual verse. Of course, I'm not very organized, but
It's okay.
The actual verse is in Corinthians 4:4. The God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelieving so that they might not see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ. The God of this world is Lucifer. we don't always remember that. So he's at work in the world today. So also levitation is something that UFO abductees experience, as well as other people in the paranormal, have experiences. We do see that with exorcism and saints also. And we see the orbs and the bleeding in and out of reality, ordinary reality, and they're precognitive. And they also know, if you're interacting with these beings, they know where you move to somehow, whether it be a Bigfoot or a UFO type relationship. They seem to follow you like the hitchhiker thing. So the interesting part of this is 99% of creation is invisible. And 99% of that creation is intelligent and conscious. So we have no idea what's swimming around us. And these things are within the ecosystem. And this is based on philosophy, really. The ecosystem, where if you look at nature, we have an ecosystem of intelligence from something like a moth all the way up to a human being, highly educated human being, all the way up into the invisible realm, all the way up to God. So in the invisible realm, it's the same thing. It's an ecosystem. So you have beings that have the consciousness of a moth, or you have beings that have the consciousness in the angelic realm as well. So some of these beings are good, and some of these beings are not good. And many of them are simply indifferent. If you look at the second choir of angels, these are the angels, the dominions, the virtues, and powers that just do things with the forces in the cosmos. They're not really interacting with us. And if you look at the angelic realm, angels, contrary to popular belief, angels just don't interact with us unless they show up, they show their face, as they did with Mary, or as they did biblically, unless they show up and give their message. But demons do interact with us. They're very theatrical. They can be your best friend. They can manifest as anything that you can imagine. And because they observe us for so long, because they know us so well and they know our psyche so well, they will manifest as your dream come true. If you're looking for a Bigfoot, they'll manifest as one, if that's what you want. You know, as Christians, we're protected, but, there are quite a few people that are no longer Christians. They might have been born Christian, but they're now rejecting God, and they've gone to New Age, or they've gone to the occult. That seems to be really blossoming right now. And we're also having a blossoming of a lot of paranormal events, all the craziness in the world that we've discussed. But it's also happening on the paranormal level. People are having more UFO experiences, more paranormal experiences with a Bigfoot or a crypto, or anything you can think of. It's like everything but the kitchen sink is happening paranormally. And also ghosts.
Yeah.
But ghosts are a riddle. I remember you asking me, and you really took me off guard. What do you think a ghost is? And I hadn't really thought deeply about it because I was never a ghost hunter. As an occultist, you're not dealing with ghosts. so, but I went back from and used, philosophical methodologies to think about, well, what is a ghost? And it's such a riddle to me, because if I go to the divine triangle of love, free will, and justice, and that God is love, if I go there, I understand the principle that love holds all things together. So it holds you and your wife together. It holds you and your pets together. And we talked about, after your physical death, you are magnetized to those you love. Well, people who don't know God, or have rejected God, or don't love God, are not going to magnetize to God. And whereas God is in heaven. He's in outside of time and space, in another dimension. So these ghosts that we encounter, I started to think, well, that's interesting, because they're not going to God, and they're not exactly in hell. But then a ghost can also be a demon presenting as whatever you want it to present as. If it's a ghost of a dead relative that you're in tremendous mourning for, and you're not under spiritual protection, that ghost can trick you for years, decades, until it doesn't. We all know demons are psychopathic. So the cycle is, they can lift you up to the highest of heights and then take you down to near death, if not death. So with ghosts, I think it's very complex, that it's not this or that. It's all of the above. That it can be, perhaps, this is just my theory, this is not biblical. If they don't love God, they're not going to go to God. And if you don't love that relative, and that relative doesn't love you, it has to be a two-way love, for that bond to take place. And that person appears, someone you can't stand that died, that's probably a red flag. That's probably not that soul. So just a
Very
thought.
interesting. Yeah, it's you and I are going to be having many of these same types of conversations one day in heaven, and probably getting a good
Well, we
laugh.
will know the answer then.
Yeah, and um, you were talking about aliens, and for a while there, I was getting this string of clients coming to me
Hmm.
that were talking about nightly visitations, always around 3 in the morning. Everything sounded like they're being visited by a demonic entity. But then I got to thinking and more, and I wasn't so sure that. First of all, I've always been the first to admit that I believe. I'm only human. I'm capable of being tricked. I do think there have been times where I thought I was dealing with a ghost and I was dealing with a demon, didn't know it, or vice versa. Thought I was going in and the demonic was present when it was just a disembodied human spirit. But some of these people, and I took everything into consideration, incubus, succubus, but then a lot of this stuff started almost seeming like these were like interdimensional beings visiting these people at night. And then I got on, and I'm not a big extraterrestrial person, but I started going down that rabbit hole looking into that. And then what was funny was right about that time, I stumbled upon this interview with President Eisenhower's daughter. And I don't know what made me want to watch this interview, but she started talking about the time that her father, who, when he was president, of course, every single day from sun up to sun, unless you're Joe Biden and you live in the basement, you every single moment of every single day, you've got appointments, meetings, speeches, whatever. As president, you're on the go all the time. Well, he was in Palm Springs for some type of
Hmm.
big thing,
I remember.
and then he just disappeared for like 12 hours and nobody
Hmm.
knew where he was at. And he told her later on in life, didn't want to take it the secret to his grave, and she asked him anyhow. But she claims he told her the story about he had met with extraterrestrials who were concerned about the warring route we were on, especially with nuclear weapons, and that if we continue down that route, we're going to destroy the planet, and that concerns everybody, including them, because they're also here. I forget which aliens race this was, but he also mentioned that they weren't the only ones that were here. Um, so, do you think some of these extraterrestrial? And I was in the Navy. I saw, I'm in the radio shack,
Yeah.
and I'm a radio man, and I'm taking messages up to the bridge to the captain and the XO all the time, and I see a lot of top secret stuff come over the teletypes. I saw a lot of crazy stuff you were told not to talk about, and if you did, you got a lot of trouble. But now they're coming open with that stuff. What's your gut feeling tell you about disclosure? And then what do you think? Do you think a lot of these um, reported demonic uh, interactions with people are extraterrestrial or vice versa? A lot of these people think they're being visited by extraterrestrials when in fact it's the demonic.
I think they're ultra dimensional or interdimensional beings, not just the ships. I think the beings themselves are. Again, you know, these beings can manifest in the physical realm. As an ex occultist, as a Christian now, just as someone who uses logic and reason, I believe that's what it is. Whether it's good or evil, again, the ecosystem, I really can't say. But all these beings can manifest into the physical. They're coming from spiritual to physical. We do the opposite, really. When we journey out of body or we have an out of body experience or a near death experience, we're going out of our body to the other realms where we're perceived by these beings. They're just doing the reverse. They're becoming physical to interact in this realm. Again, on the Kabbalistic tree of life, we're in the realm of, the Sephirat of Malkuth, which is purely physical. We're kind of handicapped compared to the rest of the intelligent beings in creation. But I think they're all spiritual beings. And I've also, I had a really strange thought when I saw the old black and white videos of these little gray puppet looking things that everybody says, are these real? No, they look so fake and phony. And well, in the occult, as you well know, you can take an idol, or some people use dolls, in other kinds of spiritual traditions, and they become possessed by the spirit of God A, B, or C, and they animate and they speak. So, why wouldn't an advanced spiritual being, if they couldn't manifest physically, use the same technique? Just these little grays and these tall grays, they're very fetal looking and with the big black eyes, and that's, if you've invoked enough demons, that's what they look like. that is what they look like. Don't
You
tell
also,
anyone I said that. I'm embarrassed because I'm Christian. I'm Catholic.
well, you know what's funny? You mentioned something else earlier in the show, and it's so weird because um, I just accidentally channel surfed a little bit as I was getting ready to turn my TV off so I could come in here and do the show.
Mm-hmm.
Just on the other side of this wall is the TV, and if I leave it on, you hear that
Me
while I'm
too.
trying to do my show. Um, and my just real quick before I turned it off, it stumbled onto this station that was the show was about cryptids.
Mm.
So then I got to thinking, just last weekend, or was it the weekend before? Possibly no, last weekend would have been Memorial Day. So the weekend before, I spent, I want to say, it was 9 o'clock here, so it was at 11 o'clock there. He wanted me to talk with him on a Zoom call, mind you, to midnight his time, and then a couple of hours afterwards. So I was on the phone for 4 hours with this
Welcome to my
Cajun.
world.
Yeah, we're on a Zoom call with this Cajun, um, very articulate man, owns his own business, has a big family, lives in the bay. I'm not going to give out the city name, but in Louisiana, lives in the bayou. Um, his family locked him in a shed that night because they all believe, and I've spoken to every single family member, they all believe he's a loop guru, which
Yeah.
either people think that's a form of lycanthropy, is either a form of
Yeah.
possession, or he's like a real wolf man, maybe a dog man. But he believed it. They all believed it. They lock him in this shed. It must have been a full moon or something. I don't know. But they lock him in this shed. He had electricity going in there, a laptop, and all that. He wanted me to just stay on, talk to him through this midnight hour to see if he was going to turn into a loop guru. So it ended up being actually a pretty enjoyable evening because
God, only you would say that.
he owned every single CD of a group called the Meters, who I'd never heard of before, and he played every single song on every single CD of the Meters. So now I'm a Meters fan. But I talked. Some weird things did happen out there in the shed, but I'm writing it off to being in the middle of the bayou in a shed with a Cajun who thinks he's a loop guru. So I'm writing off a lot of that stuff, but some weird things did happen. But he didn't turn into a loop guru. But I did work a possession case, two possession cases once, one on an Indian reservation, and one just like that, not in a bayou, but out in the woods. A mountain man lived out in the woods. His neighbors thought he was a dog man. And during the manifestation of this unclean spirit in this person, I'm telling you, it creeped me out so bad. I was backing out of the room because I'm not ashamed to admit I was getting scared. I had never seen anything like it before. Started to take on the look, very canine look in behavior to this manifestation. So what is you were the one that mentioned
Yeah, it's
werewolf and stuff. What do you think about all of that?
it's absolutely diabolic because I have seen the transformation of someone's face. I've literally seen it with my own eyes. And, the face will elongate, become really cut, masculine. It just becomes more cartoon charactery, in an evil sense. I've seen it happen. I've also seen physical objects dematerialize and other objects manifest in front of me during different rituals. I've literally seen it with my own eyes. There was no chicanery going on. There was no way. I've seen it with my own eyes. So to everyone out there and to you, I'm just telling you my story or a story. But to me, it's absolute proof that these things exist and take place. And I've also observed the similarities, the cross contamination of it. When people would ask me about the paranormal or to talk about it, I would say, it's everything but the kitchen sink. It's anything you can think of. But when it comes to the diabolic, it's pretty obvious when you're dealing with a diabolical entity, when they manifest as some sort of fierce animal, or they're talking about this happens to me and it's really awful. I mean, even an idiot would know that that's the diabolic. That's not an indifferent, spiritual force out in nature that's conscious, or it's not anything good or holy. We know that's the diabolic, and we know it happens. Like I said, we've seen the physical transformations. I mean, I had an experience once. I think I've told this story on your show a long time ago. I don't know if I was Christian at that point. It might have been like 4 years ago I told you this story, but I did an accidental exorcism on someone. I wasn't intending to do an exorcism. I was just doing a Rosicrucian ritual. And this person went into convulsions, went into strange sounds. And I knew there was something, even though I was an occultist at the time. I had a portrait of Salvatore. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, it's a Da Vinci painting of Christ. It's very metaphysical in nature. And the person walked in and looked at it and immediately had this, negative reaction to it. And they said, "You're a Christian?" And I wasn't even Christian at the time. I said, "No, that's Da Vinci. That's a piece of art, and that's Christ." But when I did this ritual, they went into convulsions. They went into great discomfort. And I remember saying to them, "Oh, don't worry. This happens all the time," to calm them down. But after it was over, something had manifested in my house behind them. So they were in the couch, but in the other side of the room on the floor was something that appeared to have fallen out of their clothing, maybe, but it was like the size of an egg, very compacted. It looked like it could have been a reptile, but it was like the skin of a frog. It was this really strange looking object. But not long after that, that object just dematerialized and wasn't even there.
I have to tell you this story.
It came out of the person out during the exorcism, right?
People, I want to warn everybody about this, and people overlook this. And I don't know why I don't talk about this more often. I should.
Yeah,
There's something
you
called a
should.
demonic calling card. Many years ago, when I had like 4 dogs at the time. Many years ago, I even have a. You know what? I'm one of these shows. I'm going to post a picture of it. I still have. It's been binded, and I've got it
Well,
somewhere in the house here.
the 3 frogs are that too. The 3 frogs that come to you. I had that happen to me.
I had one dog. One of my mastiffs got violently ill. Violently ill. I took him to the vet. They couldn't figure. They ran every test imaginable on him that you could imagine. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. Wouldn't eat, blowout diarrhea, vomiting, nothing left to vomit anymore. So he's just dry heaving because he wouldn't eat.
Aw.
Big mastiffs like that, when they get that sick, they go down fast. We didn't know, and the other 3 are fine. So a friend of mine who, this is early on in me getting into the deliverance ministry biz, and I didn't really know very much. A friend of mine who was mentoring me at the time one of several, said, "Look around his kennel or around your house for something that totally doesn't belong there, and it's going to be small, and it's something." I was having a lot of demonic drive-bys at my house at the time because Sharon was going through attacks. I went through his kennel and I found this thing. At first, it looked like a finger, and
Oh,
I paused and I'm like, if
uh,
it, I'm gonna have to call the police if it's a finger. But did he kill somebody in my yard and eat them? My dog was big enough to do that. I'm like, is that a finger? I
did it?
touched it and it wasn't a finger. It looked like a finger.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know what it was made of. I had it analyzed. The person that analyzed it couldn't tell what it was, but
Hmm.
I showed it to this person who was mentoring. He said, that's a demonic calling card.
Yeah.
And until you get it out of his kennel and bind it, he's going
Yeah.
to probably continue being violently ill until he dies. So I
Yeah.
bound, as soon as I binded it,
Hmm.
he turned, I mean, it was like immediately ran to his bowl, started eating, went outside, had a normal bowel movement, started relaxing, wasn't vomiting,
Hmm.
was totally normal again. I mean, that quick.
Well,
So
right after this happened to me with this object, that's when my second dog got sick. And then shortly after I became Christian, so all those ties were broken and all of those curses and everything were complete. But the demons retaliate. So if you exorcise someone and you're not with God in Christ, you get retaliated upon. I mean, I don't care if you're an occultist or a shaman or whatever, you're going to have to take a hit. But as a Christian, you don't have to take that hit.
I was kind of hoping if Zach popped on here again, he would this time just have the tie on.
Nobody needs to see that, brother. Nobody needs to see that. Hey, Eira, I am really interested in getting your reaction to this question. Just because of the last sentence alone, it's a little, Anthony, it's a little difficult to read, really. Or I brought stupid Zach to work with me today, which is very possible. But just get your reaction on this.
And you read it, Ira, or do you want me to read it to you?
I did you just ask me the question in the comment? Is this what you're asking me?
Yeah, I would like to get your
Oh,
comment on this question.
where an animal has come to Great Spirit to ask to be human, while an animal was human, it forgets it was an animal. It stays an animal. Could it be why we say there's a beast in us that needs to be controlled? I think that when you're dealing with these things that are not of Christ, and I'm not really sure when people say Great Spirit if they're talking about God, the Yod He Vav He Jehovah God, or if they're talking about a different God. I don't know, so I can't really answer that. But I think it's entirely possible that you can merge with the spirit of something and you will take on the physical characteristics of it. And at times it becomes a full possession. And with possession, you are not 24/7 manifesting what's possessing you. A lot of the gods and goddesses are very anthropomorphic in nature. A lot of them are transgender, they're hermaphrodite. So if you merge in your spiritual traditions with animals, it's very shifty. You can merge with that animal and then think you're unmerged, but the animal now has had this animal god or goddess or animal spirit, this force, now has the permission to remain within you. It's very, very slippery. There are, we talked about this a million times. The universe is very legalistic. There are laws. We didn't write these laws. There are physical laws and spiritual laws. And because we didn't write these laws, we can't change them. And so demons know to operate within spiritual law as well as physical law. Because of the way they're wired, it appears they're breaking physical laws, but they're not really. When it comes to the spiritual laws, when you give consent by merging or channeling something, the things that are going to merge and channel with you are not holy things, because holy things, much like when we talk about angels, They're not interested in that. And I have a feeling that they are not allowed to do that because it is a violation of your sovereignty. And it is, they're leaving their estate to come into the physical to do that. And that's a no-no. So these other beings, I think that the person that was commenting, it's entirely possible that you can carry deep within you the spirit of this animal that is merged with you, this animal force, this animal egregore. And then, like true possession, it may manifest occasionally or only when it's triggered or only when you're triggered. If you have lower emotions, anger, fear, this, that spirit is going to serve and manifest, but you don't have control over it.
We did have another question there. Michelle had asked, is that
and you should go get an
reincarnation?
exorcism if you have this going on. Just right, go to a priest.
Yeah, Sean, I was sending a message to her, and my question to this comment is, okay, isn't it reincarnation? And yeah, I was like, that's an interesting point, but what
it's not reincarnation. No.
But what Anthony was talking about is the beast inside of us. Do you have to die to reincarnate?
The beast inside of us, do you have to die to reincarnate? I don't believe we reincarnate. So I really don't have any comment. The beast inside of us, yeah, that's diabolic. If there's a beast inside of us, that's a diabolic attack or a diabolic possession, oppression, obsession, subjugation, whatever it may be. And I come to this conclusion not because I'm not interested in New Age or spiritual or Native American spiritualism. I come to this conclusion after being an occultist for 4 decades. And also, I have a 4-year degree in shamanism. So I've done it all, folks. I've been in 2 Rosicrucian orders, 2 mystery schools. Half my family was Luciferian. The other half was native spirituality. I've studied alchemy, geomancy, necromancy, theology. I mean, no, I come to that conclusion based on my life journey. I'm not saying I know everything. No one knows the answers to these questions, but if you use philosophy and you take, a cumulative, many different disciplines, you begin to understand more rather than just looking at New Age spirituality or just Catholicism or just shamanism or just your tribal wisdom. You can't. And alchemy is very helpful. There's a whole language that you learn within alchemy. It's called the language of the birds or the forbidden language. It is a symbolic language of the universe. It's God's language. Devil hijacks it. All the spiritual entities understand it and use it. Free will. Gosh, you should have been here last week, Anthony.
Let me ask you something else real quick.
Boy, Ira, you've got them coming at you today, don't you?
Free will, Anthony, is what love rests upon. You have to have free will in order to have unconditional love. And if you have free will, then you have to have justice. So justice, free will, and love are a part of the divine triangle or the golden triangle. They are spiritual law. So God is love. God wanted us to experience love with him. He had to give us all free will. He has free will. And when he gives us free will, he had to have a safety net, which was justice. So justice, some people call it karma. Some people call it cause and effect. Other people call it this or that. But it exists as a spiritual construct within the universe itself. I hope that answers your question.
Let me ask you this real quick, because there's 2 camps right now, predominant camps in deliverance ministry, and I don't judge either one. You mentioned discipline. There's a couple of main disciplines, but what is your take on many exorcists believe that complete integration is not possible because if the person can be possessed, but the invading evil spirit is so evil and so nasty that for it to remain in the body longer than it should, the outer shell will become start to decay and die. and then some believe that complete integration is totally possible, and you have these people who were possessed, didn't know it, no one else knew it, and the demon remained in them so long, eventually that invading spirit completely took over, and you have these people walking around that are actually demon possessed people. And
Well,
these demons are walking around. What is your
well,
take on complete integration?
we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Um, Anything is possible if it happens, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we say are impossible, and then they happen. I know that consent is necessary. The devil cannot violate our free will, but he can do loopholes and workarounds within the legalistic spiritual laws. For example, in the occult, well, now in the modern zeitgeist, you're always hearing people say, these evil overlords we have to say no. They have to tell us what they're going to do to us before they do it. They have to have our consent. That is absolutely true. That is a Luciferian absolute. You have to tell someone what you're going to do to them before you do it when you're ritualistically. Like, let's say I'm going to, do a ritual that's going to keep someone from speaking. So what am I going to do? So they just subconsciously don't speak. I'm going to speak to their subconscious. I'm going to do it in symbolism, and I'm going to use a few other techniques which are very close to mind control or hypnosis, but there is also a metaphysical aspect to it. But I'm going to use a universal archetype, a symbol that will keep them from speaking out in the future for the next ritual I'm going to do to them. And that thing, what would that be? What would that symbol be, which would be likening to keeping them from speaking? What would that symbol be? A mask, right? That's the universal archetypes. So when you're working within the metaphysical realm or the magical realms, you use symbols, sigils, and universal archetypes to do your work. And it happens across the board. It happens to us all the time. It happens to us in high levels of marketing with products. But that is basically sorcery, and that's what you do. Did that answer the question, or did I leave something out?
No.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot more to magic than that. You're doing a lot of different things at the same time within the ritual, but you have to get someone's consent. So when you show them the mask, and their subconscious is the only thing that understands it, and they say nothing because consciously they're not catching on, that's a yes. That's the loophole. That's the workaround.
We've got a really good friend to the show and to my channel as well, Linda Judd, who wants to know, in all things you've studied, how much personal transformation came about.
When you study what I study, all you hear is the goal is to become more than human. I didn't have God in my life. I wasn't born into a Christian family. There were no sacraments in our home, no crucifixes, no Bibles, no talk of God. It was Luciferian. So what did I accomplish? Well, nothing until I became Christian, because once I became Christian, I was able to take that vast body of knowledge and what I had been born into and then studied for many, many decades and practiced. I'm able to take that now and share that with others so that they might know the enemy, which is Lucifer, who is at work in the world, and they might understand the symbolism that's used, or the techniques that are used, so that I might lend my voice to leveling the playing field between good and evil. Whatever little contribution I can give, one starfish at a time. Whatever needs to be said, ask me. I'll say it. Yes, as you've seen in some of my former podcasts. But because of the within these studies with the trivium, the quadrivium, the different disciplines that you study, alchemy, and a lot of it is psychology, and a lot of it has to do with the deep parts of the human psyche. And so you can really see in the world right now how the human psyche is being attacked by evil, which is actual human beings. But the human beings are the ones pulling the strings. But what mind is above them that's asking them or animating them to pull the strings in the physical world? What mind is that above them? And that's pure evil. So human beings, they're running around pulling the strings, doing all these things to mankind. But the real battle is not the Luciferian or the dark overlords or whatever, the deep state or whatever you want to call them. We are not fighting those people. We're fighting their gods. And you need to know the gods. You need to know what their MO is. You need to know, a lot of things, it doesn't matter what you believe, they believe it. So it's good to know what their playbook is. I don't have all the answers. I can only give.
Nobody does.
I can only give a different perspective of another philosophy, another discipline, which most people don't hear.
You know what?
Yeah.
I have to look at
We
something
done?
real quick before I let you go. Yeah, we are, but
we're done.
that's right. I was
Terrible.
going to talk to everybody about next month. First Friday of next month, you and I aren't getting together.
No, we're off. You're off.
Next Friday.
Zach is
So
off.
I will see you in August. Friday, August 4th will be your next visit here for Christian Supernatural.
Okay.
No, I'll still work. So I'll still put a show together, and I'll still be working regardless. So
I thought you were going out of town. Or do you do that when you're going? I thought the 4th, because if you're not going out of town, I'll do a show. I thought you were going to be out of town on the 4th, and you've got the dates. The 25th.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing, Sean. I can schedule a show today. So
Okay. Yeah, because I've got the 26th. You're out of town of this month. This month. And then I have you out of town the first Friday in July, the 7th.
Thank you,
and
Michelle.
I've got you out of town on Friday of this month, the 23rd. So if you want to do wherever you're at having fun, if you want to
Linda.
Plug in a show, it's up to you. But I thought you got my permission to take the day off.
Thank you.
Anyway, Eira, I love you. I respect you. I'm so I love doing your once a month visits here. That's
a little bit kerfluky today, not very organized, but
oh no, I don't like it organized. I like my shows to take on a life of their own because I don't have a clue what I'm doing anyway. So
yeah,
I like it to be that way. Give all your fur babies a big hug and a kiss for me. If I was there, I'd give you a big hug and a kiss. I pray for you often. And I love you, and I'll see you. I'll see you when? In July?
Yeah.
Or August?
God bless
everyone. See you in August.
Okay.
Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and Michelle, I look like Rambo if he ate a lot of donuts and got really, really old. So maybe the Rambo in this last movie, if you add about 130
which Rambo did to put on weight to play the role he played in Copland. Ba-dum-bum.
That's it.
A lot of donuts, he said, and ice cream.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, I just want to make a real quick announcement. And I know that we're pushing time here, but I invite everybody to move over to the PAC channel right after this. And our second hour, we've got a discussion going for Memorial Day. It's on. It's all about Footprints Forward, and it's the struggles that veterans have on Memorial Day and watching people commercialize what they do with Memorial Day. You know, I mean, let's be honest here. Who in the dead cares where you buy your bed from? You know, Memorial Day. I think that we've kind of, you know, a lot of people believe that Christ has been taken out of Christmas. I think a lot of memorial has been taken out of Memorial Day.
Absolutely.
And I think that we really ought to bring this up to people. But if you switch over to the PAC channel, the first hour you'll meet a brand new partner of ours, but then there's a discussion on there recorded from Monday. So I just wanted to sneak that in, and I know I broke that on you, but darn it, I get to do that. I'm Zach Bow.
No problem, man. You know me, I'm easy. I'm easy. I'm glad you did. That's a very important topic. I love all of you, and I thank all of you for taking an hour out of your busy Fridays to hang out with me. I will be here this coming Monday night. Oh, you're going to love her. I haven't had her on the show in a long time. She lives here in Vegas with me. Linda Massanintiwa, elite Ghostbuster author, cool lady. You're going to love her. Monday night the 5th. And thank you to Zach and Adrian for co-producing my show. I couldn't do it without them because I am totally computer illiterate. CommunityPayItForward.us. Go there. USOCC.org. Go there. If you're interested in Bible study, which is every Wednesday and Sunday afternoons at 5, it's right here on Facebook Live on the United States Old Catholic Church Clergy and Parishioners Facebook page. If you're interested in night prayer, which is Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, go to bishopjameslong.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the homepage. The link to Spreaker is there that takes you to night prayer. Okay. Thank you to Things Network. Thank you to Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. Thank you to Skeleton Key Network. Thank you to PACT, little p, capital ACT, Podcasting for All Coming Together channel, for all of those networks simulcasting my show. God bless you for that. And BeInspiredRadio.net. Chicky Hot, the rock psychic. That's her radio network. She audio re-airs of my episodes Saturdays all day, along with a lot of old reruns of Art Bell shows. Very cool. And a lot of other really cool shows there. So check that out, BeInspiredRadio.net. Eli Roth presents The Legion of Exorcists every Thursday night at 10 p.m. on Travel Channel, Discovery Plus, and Max. Thank you all for supporting that show. It means a lot to me. And it's bad joke time. I'm going to pull a bad joke that one of you sent in out of this haunted carnival Barker hat. And it's time for you guys to send me in some more jokes. I've got, I think, 4 left in here. Okay. Oh, I can't grab one. Okay, got one. This is a pretty good one. How do you make a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. I love you all. God bless you all. Peace.